Pastor Miles McPherson with me. Played in the NFL, a massive multi-site church, internationally known. You're an author, I think maybe 7 or 8 books or something like that. You're one of the biggest pastors in our nation. What's one of the hardest things that you've been through in your life, and how did God get you through?
There have been countless incidences that have brought me to where I wanted to die. It hit me when I saw my father die, that death is a trial. Like, it's ugly. We all got to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
We all got to deal with that. And it hit me because I saw it. And I was like, that's the ultimate trial.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Thematic Podcast. My name is Craig, and today I have Pastor Miles McPherson with me. I'm going to introduce him formally in a second, but I want to let you know what we're doing on this series called Conversations in Contrast. If you can't tell, maybe by watching this or you're just listening, we're actually sitting right now in Shalom, the mobile podcast studio, which sounds cool, but it's actually just a 20-foot-long camper, and my kids' bunks are right over there.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
We're in Hollywood.
Yeah. We are in Southern California right now in the San Diego region, and we're on this tour from Seattle to San Diego talking to leaders, pastors, influencers about, of all things, pain. And so, Pastor Miles, and for anybody that's maybe new to this series, just a quick word on why we're doing that. I do a lot of ministry online. Social media, of course, is huge in our world. It isn't going away. And there's a lot of great things about it, and there's a lot of bad things and a lot of just downright evil things about it. But what I found is that one unintentional side effect of social media is that we're teaching a generation to look at other people's lives through a filter. And so through this podcast, we're trying to #fight the filters. And we just felt compelled to pull back the curtain on pain. Maybe I'll put it to you like this, like if somebody, maybe a 16-year-old rolled up to King David when he's in his prime, and he's like, yeah, but look at you. You've got the king. You're the king. You got the castle. You have it all. Like, obviously your life is perfect. And David's like, son, let me tell you about 15 years of turmoil and living hell. Right? And so that's the concept of, like, sometimes people that we look up to, we just don't know what's made that person. And so that's the point of this series, and we hope that you be encouraged. So, Pastor Miles, if it's okay with you, the way that I'm introducing all my guests on this show is everybody that I'm interviewing is renowned and amazing and probably can have a big curated bio. But what I'm trying to do is sort of introduce somebody just from a lens of, you and I have never met in person before, just from a lens of, like, maybe the way a quote-unquote normal person might see you. Maybe somebody in your congregation that's not like a close friend or somebody that sees you online. So forgive me if I miss some things, but this is just genuinely as somebody that has known about you for years but doesn't know much, and what I see, and the way that I think maybe people would normally see you, and it's all great. And so then we could talk about what the reason for that greatness is just because everything's been handed to you, or maybe because you've been through some stuff. So this is what I see. I see a pastor who played in the NFL, for one. That's amazing. Now, I do know part of your struggle in life, because you have been really vocal about it, and I've heard it before, I read it, is some issues with some drugs, which actually was the catalyst for you meeting Jesus. So I did know that. And so you meet the Lord through this struggle with drugs. And I don't know if you're in the NFL at the time, but anyway, God gets a hold of your heart in a radical way, and you eventually become a pastor, and you plant what has become a massive multi-site church here in the San Diego area, but you're internationally known. You're an author, I think maybe 7 or 8 books or something like that. And so to me, it's like you're one of the quote-unquote biggest pastors in our nation, leading a massive church, and it's just known all over the place. Man, I can't even believe, that you said yes to this, so thank you. We're honored and humbled to even sit down with you, but it's the type of man that normally somebody would look at and just be like, man, like, how could they ever? Like, this is amazing, NFL, big church, like, so successful. So I guess my simple question to you is either, man, God's just really set you up and it's just all been, like, on a silver platter for you, or I'd imagine, like most of the people I'm talking to, there was a making of Miles beyond just the drug, like stuff that's happened in your life and maybe even has continued to happen. And so to whatever degree you feel comfortable in whatever type of area you want to take us, I want to ask a simple question. What's one of the hardest things that you've been through in your life, and how did God get you through? And if you're comfortable talking about pain, struggle, sorrow, suffering, maybe even for some a dark night of the soul, we'd love to hear it. How's that?
That's good. That's good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
It's funny when you say silver platter. I mean, it's comical, right? To think that. I think probably before I get to an incident, there have been countless incidences that have brought me to where I wanted to die, or I wanted to. I don't want to do this anymore, God.
Really?
I wasn't going to kill myself. I wasn't suicidal. However, I was like, God, can we just go? Like, I can't take this anymore. Even months straight. And some of those things I can't really talk about because it was just can't talk about. And so when you ask me that question, I'm thinking, man, which one do I talk about? I will say this.
Can I ask real quick before you go on?
Yeah.
Those things that you're talking about, is that before Jesus or even times of struggle after Jesus?
Those were in the last 7 years. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
While being a quote unquote mega church pastor, so successful. Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've come to church, preaching, and my heart was like 1,000,000 pounds.
I know what that.
You get that, right?
Yeah.
And so, and there were a couple of times where 2 or 3 of these things were layered on top of each other, and just the devil saying to me and showing me how the end of your ministry and your reputation and everything is right here. And it had nothing to do with me. It was just things around me, but it was coming on me. And in addition to family things, and, I have a daughter who's been, fighting anxiety, depression, and suicide for 15 years, right? And she's, sometimes my wife is so drained she can't walk up the stairs. And, that's a daily thing for us to this day. She has she's a female Job. She has more things I can imagine.
Really?
My wife has a lot of health issues, but my daughter is, sick and been through hospitals and multiple doctors and surgeries. That's not even the worst. So when you ask me that question, I'm thinking, okay, which one, and how do I parse this out? I will say this before I get into it. Will Smith was doing an interview a long time ago, and I remember they were talking about how much he works out and how much he runs. And he said running helped him develop the ability to tell his body no. And so all my life, since I was a little kid, I was playing sports, and I had to tell my body no.
Right.
So I had to go work out. There's no pain, no gain. That is a real thing.
Yeah.
If you are not willing to suffer, you are not going to get in shape, period. You may be talented, but it ain't going to last. And so all my life, I've had the experience of saying no. I'm just going to keep going, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And so pain and discomfort is part of growth. You can't grow without pain.
Right.
And so when people who are watching this see people who are successful, if they think that success is painless in of itself, even when you get there.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It's not painless.
Right. Right.
Being, like you talk about King David, sitting in the palace is not painless.
Right.
Now, he may have a little better pillow than someone sitting on a rock, but it's not painless. Getting there is not painless. Nothing is painless.
Right.
I shouldn't say nothing. No journey is painless. And so when I was playing in the NFL, or, from Pop Warner to my high school had 18 kids on the senior team. My senior year, we had 2 games that canceled the season. And then someone donated some money. We finished the season. I had no film other than one game my father took on the camera. I didn't get a scholarship. I went to Division III school, walked on, got drafted from that school. And the only reason I got drafted is because after my junior year, my coach made a flyer every week and faxed it to every NFL team. This is before email, before cell phone. And so you talk about a struggle, in the year before my senior year, in a Division III school with 2,500 students, no one had ever gone to the NFL. I ripped my chest, pectoral muscle, benching. I couldn't even lift my arm. And so I'm going to my senior year talking about I'm going to the NFL from a Division III school. I can't even lift my hand, much less a pound. I had to work my way all the way back. Physically, that was probably the most painful thing I experienced, physically.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So...
Did you finish your college career there?
Yeah.
You got drafted from a D3?
Well, we went to D2 my senior year, but yes, basically.
Wow. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So, but I was literally I didn't stay overnight in the hospital, but I was literally in rehab with lifting my hand, then a half a pound, 1 pound, and in 12 months is an NFL draft. So, it's like, okay, let's go, because I don't have a day to waste. So I had to build my way all the way back to play that season.
Wow.
So there's always, God uses pain throughout your whole life. Walking up a hill, eating, getting out of bed is always a struggle against gravity. You're constantly working against gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So when people think if I do this, I'm going to be happy or comfortable, that's never going to happen. And when I watched my father die, I watched both my parents die. My father died first, and he took his last breath in front of me, both of my parents. It hit me when I saw my father die, that death is a trial. Like, it's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dang, we all got to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
We all got to deal with that. And you could talk about not paying your bills. You could talk about being hungry. You could talk about get your heart broke. But you got to deal with that.
Right.
It hit me because I saw it. And I was like, that's the ultimate trial. And luckily he was asleep with some people. And luckily it was a 3-day from time he went into a coma to the time he died. But my mother had breast cancer and suffered and suffered and suffered. And so pain is just, it's here. You're not going to avoid it. Don't think that more likes are going to make it go away.
Right.
Looking pretty is going to go away.
Right.
It ain't going to. You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Now, with all that said, I think probably the most painful. I don't know if I could even grade them. It was recently 2 years ago. My wife got COVID. Now I got COVID, and she was paranoid because she has a lot of underlying issues.
Oh, okay.
She has autoimmune. She's got Lyme. She got all this stuff, and she was so paranoid to get COVID. She got it. For 12 days, she was at the house. For 9 of those days, she wanted to die. She was telling me, I can't do this. She was just suffering really bad. Suffering fever, high fever, nausea, stomach stuff, just stuff coming out of everywhere.
Yeah.
And she was just, I can't do this. I can't do this. She couldn't sleep. And for 12 days. And she said, if I have to do this a couple more days, I just want to die. Now, that's how bad. Now I'm watching this. And then I took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, you have to get her to the hospital right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a hospital about 15 minutes away. He said, don't go to that one. It's too far. You have to go to the one that's 2 blocks. You have to go to that one. And when we took her in, her oxygen was extremely low. And this is when a lot of people were dying from COVID,
right,
putting people on ventilators.
Right.
And her oxygen was deathly low. Her pulse and her oxygenation was low.
Was it at the time where it was like, oh, if they go on an event, it's pretty much like you're not going to get them back, and 100%. So you probably had that fear going on. And
and I'll tell you about that in a minute. When she was taken into the hospital, she looked at me and said, am I going to die? And I didn't know if I see her again because I couldn't go with her.
Oh yeah, that's the time where you can't even go with her.
So the doctor was on the curb because we were outside. Everything was being processed outside. I started yelling at the doctor. I said, I was crying. I wasn't yelling. I was crying, screaming. My name was Miles McPherson. I'm a pastor in San Diego. I've been helping people for 30-something years. Played in the NFL. I'm thinking of everything I could tell this brother.
Wow.
Don't put my wife on the ventilator. Don't put my wife on the ventilator. So I am at this moment trying to save my wife's life. I do not trust anybody. I don't trust the whole medical system and all that stuff, that the COVID stuff. There's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, right.
And I said, do not put my wife on the ventilator. And this is before we have been to the hospital, a different hospital several times, and they were berating her because she didn't take the vaccine, and I was like getting ready to kill somebody.
Right. And
so I told them, do not do that. Well, we put her in. I'm in the parking lot every day. They talk all day, every day for 8 days. They told me she may not come out. based on her numbers, she's going to be there 3 weeks minimum, and she may die.
They just told you
They
straight.
told me straight up. Well,
So you just would come and drive and park there and look at her window and pray, or what?
well, here's the thing. Her window,
Yeah,
her
the window.
was on the second floor, and one day it was by the ambulances, so that's not where you parked. You had to walk over there. So where my car was, I wasn't over there. But one day I said, "Can I see you?" And I came to the window. She couldn't even come to the window. And so I was standing out there, and a nurse came out, and she just walked right up to me like this close. And she said, I thought she was going to tell me I had to leave because that area.
Right.
She said, "I go to your church. How can I help you?" I said, "My wife's in that room right there." I start crying right now. I said, "My wife's in that room. I want to see my wife." She said, "My boyfriend is he worked in the respiratory." So I said, "Can he get it to the window?" This was a different day. She got it to the window. But when I was in the parking lot, we have a ICU nurse in our church who's a director of the ICU of another hospital. And I said to her, "Here are my wife's vitals," because I knew them. I spoke to the nurse in my wife's hospital, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock a.m., 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock. 4 times a day I would call during shift change. "What happened today? Here's my wife. Take care of her. Let me know," just every day.
Yeah. But you would go every day, even though you're not getting in, just to be there.
Out of the parking lot. I worked from that time in the parking lot. And
just to be near.
Hey, listen, I was getting food, bringing food to her. They would take it up to her.
Oh, okay. You could do that. Good.
Well, I couldn't go. Then I would have to give them somebody.
Yeah.
But I was just there.
Was this in 2020 or 2021?
2021.
Okay.
2021. So, so I called my friend, my ICU nurse, and said, "Here's her vitals." And she said, she could die. We're seeing people with those vitals die, and she'll be in there 3 weeks minimum, and she may not come out. So that was
she's kind of giving you what they said is what I would say, so you know that. Yeah,
she's saying
same.
Now her job is she's the supervising nurse. I don't know the proper title, but she's a supervisor of an ICU at another hospital.
Yeah,
and they had the most COVID deaths in San Diego. So she's seeing this every day.
Yeah,
constantly people die. So she said, "This is what you're dealing with," and they may put her on a ventilator. I get a call from the executive director. I mean, the CEO of the hospital. He knew a friend. He said, "Miles, you told the doctor on the curb not to put her on a ventilator." I said, "Yes." I said, "I don't want my wife on a ventilator." And he said to me, "Well, that also means that if we have to resuscitate her, we won't. We'll just let her die." I didn't know that. So I'm in the parking lot screaming, crying, telling him, "Do whatever you got to do. Do whatever you got to do." Because what am I? So she they never had to put her on a ventilator. Matter of fact, she came home in 8 days. Her numbers one night, and I hope I can remember these numbers. Her oxygen was 86% saturation, and her, I mean, I wish I knew these numbers, but it was deathly low. They took her down to get an X-ray, and the next morning she was normal. And all of a sudden she got better, and now she came home after 8 days, and she got better every day, and it was miraculous. But I guess it was 20 days. She was dead. Well, she was very close to. Right. Everybody was dying, so it was like, this is it.
Right.
This is it. So that was hard. I mean, that was and during that time, everything was optional in my life.
What do you mean?
Yeah, church was optional. What I do with the rest of my life was optional. Not God.
Right.
But I was like, I remember in the parking lot, I was talking to a friend and his wife, and I was crying, screaming, "What am I gonna do? Can't work. What during right this time, what am I gonna do? And if she dies, what am I gonna do?"
Right.
So that was a hard time. I mean, there's our physical heart has different chambers, different areas, and I believe that about our emotional heart. When you have your crush when you're 16 years old, your heart is like that. But that's the 16-year-old crush area, right? Then when your mother dies, there's another part of your heart.
Right.
Then you have a baby, there's another part of your heart, another feeling. So your wife, your spouse, died, and we've been together 43 years. When that happens, that's a whole nother, your life flashes before you, because you start thinking, when I met my wife, and I was talking to someone the other day about this, we were talking about love, because this young girl was talking to me about her and her boyfriend and all. Should she marry him, and should she break up, and they're not perfect, he's not perfect, and I don't know if I want to deal with this the rest of my life. And I said, look, let me tell you something. When I married my wife, we're very opposite. I did not know we were opposite until long after we were married.
Did you guys get married after you became a follower of Jesus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't know we were opposite.
Okay.
Until we're like completely opposite, right?
Until after the
way after.
That's a word for somebody.
Oh, I got a whole sermon on that one. I think that's a scam. People.
Oh yeah.
Is big time.
Oh yeah.
Because the only way you can really stay married is if you're going to serve the other person. So we're married. We get married to be holy, not happy. So
yeah.
But I told this girl just 2 days ago, I said, the reason I married her, I made a decision, even when I met her, I want to take care of her. That was my job. And not that she doesn't take care of me, because she takes care of me.
Right.
I mean, she gives me pills all day and gives me organic food to make sure I'm, healthy and got my blood right. So it's not like that. But I was like, it was a decision. It wasn't like some emotional thing. It's like, no, I'm making a decision that I'm gonna provide for you. I'm gonna do everything I can to, she grew up very poor. Her family didn't ever have a car until she bought a car. She didn't have a dishwasher in her house. She grew up in a housing project.
Where did y'all grow up at?
She grew up in Connecticut. I grew up in New York.
New York City?
New York, Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah. So she never had Christmas. Her Christmas was hand-me-downs and people giving her bags of clothes.
Wow.
She was very poor. And when I met her, I went to that house. She was living on her own, but we went to her mom still lived there. And I said, no, I'm gonna take care of you, and I'm gonna protect you, provide for you. So now she's dying, and I can't do that. And so now it's over. Not that I haven't blessed her, and not that she hasn't kids, and it's just the first washer and dryer she ever had was when we bought one. The first, Christmas tree where she could buy her own. Well, I guess when she got out of the project she did, but she just had a very hard life.
Yeah.
And she never met any of her grandparents. She never met cousins. It's just her mom and her brother. Her father was a knucklehead. And so my family was her family. It's the only family she had. So all that flashes before you when they're going to die. You're like, okay, how'd you do? So that was a hard thing. And, church, I had already had COVID. And even when I had COVID, I was like, I don't want to do anything anymore. I just want to sit in the corner. And I'm not a sit in the corner. I'm like hyper. I'm like, I got energy for 90 people.
Yeah.
But COVID just, I had brain fog, which I never had before.
Right.
Someone would put a glass of water in front of me and I would look at it for like 2 hours. I just couldn't.
Really?
That was my COVID experience.
How long were those symptoms like that for you while you're trying to lead this church, lead a staff?
I was probably maybe 6 weeks.
Wow.
I stopped. I didn't go to work. I mean, I was like, no. I was like, I'll see y'all when I'm done. I didn't hardly do anything.
So you obviously have a good team of people that take the reins.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't preach for like 2 months, and I was in the bed for 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Wow.
So Yeah, I wasn't even.
Yeah.
I was dumb. I remember going on a 3-hour walk in my neighborhood, and I was just like a zombie. And I picked up a stick. It's like a 4-foot stick, and I'm walking through my neighborhood, saying someone's gonna call the cops on me. I just look. I look like. I was just like walking like this, like, with this big old stick in my hand, like he's gonna hit somebody. And I was like, oh, it's a stick. I haven't walked around with a stick for a long time. I was just like gone. So after I came out of COVID, then my wife got COVID after that. And she didn't get it from me because it went away and I was good and she took care of me. She never got sick. Then she got it.
Yeah.
And so I was already conditioned, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do anything. And so then when she got it, I was like, listen, none of y'all mean nothing to me. I got to deal with this right here.
Yeah.
So that was hard. There are other things that were hard in different ways and for a lot longer periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had a couple trials that went, a year, 2 years. And, but it was just different.
Yeah. Can I ask a question like this? And maybe many of the listeners wouldn't understand this, but especially as pastors, there's so many people that we have a obligation to continue to honor no matter what has happened. We felt pain and things like this, but maybe I could just ask you like this, just to maybe go a little different direction. How long you been pastor?
Senior pastor, 23 years.
Yeah. Okay. And you could be you could be any pastor for 23 months, 23 weeks and have gone through stuff. As somebody that's been a pastor, I know that's how it is. So I'm sure that you could tell us 100 stories of painful things that you've been through leading people. So whether or not you want to tell any of the stories or tell any of the details, that's up to you. But my question is, how do you balance continuing to lead in faith, in hope? You got to preach. Sometimes we got to preach. And like what's happening in my heart and at home is like, I don't want to preach. Like I have to put faith on my face when it's not there. Like, so how have you learned to continue to be a leader? Because I know that there's a ton of different vocations and they all have their own challenges and things like this, but there's just something unique about being a pastor. And it carries our phone, we're never really off the clock, not just physically, and anybody can call anytime, but just the weight that a real shepherd feels on their heart and their mind for the work all the time. So whether it was this season where your wife was going through this, or any other season to do with your family or friends, or something going on at church, how have you learned to keep leading and not just having it all come out of you, whether you're preaching or leading a staff meeting or whatever? Like, how do you navigate those times where it's like, man, I'm going through it, but I have to be this general in this time?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
some trials are short enough, like my wife's, where I wasn't there.
Yeah, you got to step aside from it. And
right. Some of them, the ones that are too long, you either deal with it. I'm very open about my pain, so I don't, at least I don't think, I'm very open about my pain, so I talk about it. I say, hey, look, y'all.
Like from the pulpit?
Oh, yeah. Like my wife, everybody knows about my wife's story. I was in the news. It was on social media. Pray for my wife. Yo, I will kill you if you don't pray for my wife.
He's in the news, yeah, because he's, I am the pastor. Don't put...
Bro, let me tell you something. The news stations out here were saying, Pastor Miles' wife is sick. We need to pray for her. I mean, they were doing news stories on it. Yeah. I mean, because I'm in the news a lot anyway. And so we have a lot of good friends in the media, but they were just...
So you're in the news typically in a good way?
Typically in a good way.
Okay.
That's a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
So either you just deal with it and just go, or I'll tell you, hey, look, y'all, I need to pray. Y'all need to pray for me. A lot of times you can't say that all the time.
Right.
So sometimes you just gotta, and most of the time you just gotta deal with it and go out there. And there have been many times on Sunday, it's been hard for whatever is going on. Sometimes the church knows about it because it's in the news, and sometimes they don't. We had a story recently where it was national news, and I was getting accused of having a child's death on my hands. I had nothing to do with it. And that was national. I was getting calls from everywhere. Hey, what's happening with this person in the church?
Yeah.
And so, you got to go out there and say, hey, look, let me tell you, I just got to tell you what happened. I'll tell you our position, blah, 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 blah. And you just go do it. And, those are very hard. So, I don't hold the position of trying to represent like everything's okay all the time.
Okay.
Because it's not. So I'm not worried about, they're going to see me stressed or they're going to see me hurt. I'm not worried about that. As a matter of fact, I talk about, if people have heard my name or know anything about me, they probably know I played football and did cocaine.
Yeah.
Those are like 1, 2. So
he said it.
Because that's the story.
And that's
I want people to know that. I want people to know, here's my journey. I was in drugs and did this, and I was messing around and white.
Yeah.
Here's all the stuff that was messed up in my life, and then Jesus came. So
but that's the thing is, like, sometimes in the church, those are the stories that we're all like, yeah, because that was all in the world, Miles, and then your story says, well, he delivered you in a day.
Yeah, he did.
As I understand it, right? Cocaine was gone in a day. Yeah. And then that's the movie line, the storyline that everybody loves, because it's like, oh yeah, he met God and it's all good. What's harder in the church to deal with is people in general, Christians in general, or Christian leaders specifically, but what happens when you're still going through stuff after you meet Jesus?
Yeah. So my wife and I, my daughter and I, who I was telling you about, we went on the news and did a whole interview about her suicide.
Really?
Yeah. So she told the whole story right on local Fox News here. So what I'm called to do, me, I'm from New York. Okay, one thing about me, we're from New York is we're real, right? I'm not saying there aren't phony people in New York, but we pride ourselves on being real, almost too real, right?
Yeah. Some would say blunt and rude.
Blunt and rude, right? Blunt and rude. But if you're from there and you meet New York people, you're like, that's just authentic. They're rude people. But once you can walk into a little New York tangent, you can walk into a deli. You know what deli is?
Yeah.
Okay. And people, a lot of times, that's an East Coast thing, delicatessen, which is
No, I was in New York I went to a deli at midnight when I landed and got a big old sandwich like this.
Exactly.
And it was like a convenience store, and then there's like this deli.
Yeah.
So anyway, in Brooklyn.
I don't even know if there are delis out. I guess there are, but it's just different.
It's different.
You walk everyone's neighborhood and you walk into a deli, you go, what do you want? And if you're from the West Coast, you're like, why is he yelling at me?
That's exactly what I felt.
He's not yelling at you. He was asking you, what do you want? So if you said to him, what do you got? He's like, hey, we got this, we got this, we got this, we got this. And it sounds rude, but it's not. That dude will probably give his shirt off his back to you. And it's a different culture. So I grew up in that, right? So I came out here.
Californians are different kind of. It's
more of a nice thing. So while I was out here, when I first started in ministry, this lady, we both kind of got saved at the same time, and she was training to be a counselor. I was training to be a pastor, and she says to me, from her counseling perspective, do you have any idea how people perceive you? And I was like, I'm from New York. I don't care. That was my answer. Now. That's the wrong.
She's expecting you to say yes, and she's gonna be like, "No, you don't," or
no,
or no,
or what? Well, is there something wrong?
Yeah.
But I didn't.
But you just
it went right on my head.
Did better.
It went right on my head. Now, now I see why that's a bad answer. But at the time, I literally said it to her. I said, "I'm from New York. Why would I care?" Now, did I care about what people thought? Yes. Do I have insecurities like everybody else? Yes. But that was my answer to her.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that God saved me. That's the gospel. So
right.
I can't, if I leave that out, then I'm preaching the wrong gospel to me. So for me to say the bad stuff is like, no, that's part of the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't tell you that part, if I'm not honest about that part, I'm not being a true evangelist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like, and I didn't learn anything different than that. So I don't have any context where that's not the only way to do it. That's the only way to do it. So for me to say, hey, I got this problem or I get this problem is not a big deal. And my church I think they would say that.
Wow. Okay. So you that's just the way that you lead. Like you don't feel this like pressure to put on the strong face for the sake of your team. It's just like, hey, if I'm going through it, I'm gonna let y'all know we're gonna battle this together. Like you're gonna pray with me, I'm gonna pray with you, and we're gonna move forward.
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, sometimes you just got to put on, you don't want to keep burdening your people and all stuff because, I was in a meeting. Oh yeah, we were at a leadership meeting like a month ago, and I was saying, hey, God just did this just happened. This just happened a month ago. I said, hey, I just want to say something. God just blessed us with something that I can never tell you, and I'm taking to my grave, but let's just praise God for it.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I never told him, and it's something I'm going to take to my grave.
And that was a good thing, a blessing.
It was a miracle. It was a miracle. And it was a miracle to the point of, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So there's a good thing that you're never going to tell a soul about. And then like you referenced earlier, a lot of stuff, it sounds like you're pretty transparent about things that are going on when you can be, but there's also countless times where it's just not appropriate for us to share any of the details. And so you're compelled to stay quiet about some of that stuff, not because you're trying to hide anything, but because it's not appropriate to share. And so
it would be illegal.
Yeah, sometimes when it's illegal. Yeah, we've been there too. So earlier you said sometimes you just have to, go out and do the thing. And I don't know if you use the term compartmentalize or what you use, or just do it. So can you think of any practical steps for anybody listening that's struggling, and they're struggling to still do what they're called to do because of a pain or an issue that they're having? Is there anything like tools that you've learned to embrace that can help somebody like still do what they need to do in the midst of something that they're either able to talk about, or sometimes it's harder, you can't talk about it, and so people don't even understand what you're going through?
One, you have to decide, is God called you to do it? Mm. If God called you to do it, forgive me, I'm from New York, but just shut up and keep going.
Right.
I mean, if God called you to do it, he's using that to equip you to do it better.
Right.
Period. Thank him for it.
Right.
And learn from it. If you don't learn from it, you're going to go through it again. So if God called you to do it, like God called me to marry my wife, right? And called us together.
Right.
Well, I'm not going to leave it just because something,
Right.
She gives me tuna casserole with no tuna.
Right.
Which she did one day. She said, I got some good news and bad news. We made tuna casserole, but I forgot the tuna. I said, I got a bowl of noodles. Like,
yeah.
Hey, if God calls us together, God calls together.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. So in marriage, it's like we don't use the D word because it's not even, we're not going to talk about it.
No.
Right? Because this is a God thing.
No. And,
right.
And if you cheated me, the D word's death.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm not going to kill my wife. I'll kill the dude. Now, like,
I'm Miles McPherson. I serve people.
Hey, listen. That was a hard day. I told the church that. If I remember, they were cracking up. I was like, look, no, they might have not been cracking up because I was crying, probably saying it, but I was like, this was, when I was talking to that doctor my wife was getting, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. This is, I don't pull that card. Hey, I'm this. I'm
yeah.
that.
Yeah. There's some high moments high emotional moments in our life when things just fall away and this stuff happens.
This is the time. This is what can I do right? I got to pull everything I got right here.
Yeah. Okay, so your steps are, number one, go to the very foundation. Am I doing what God's called me to do? And if I am,
am I in a place?
Yeah.
It's like,
what else?
It's like my brother was a professional boxer and he boxed in Times Square Boxing Club, which is right in Times Square, New York. And guys would come in there and work out. They look in the mirror, they jump rope, they look all good, they sweat, and they got six pack and all stuff. But they get in the ring and they get punched in the face. Never see them again. They weren't called. It's wrong. It's the wrong. They would call it something else. Fine.
Yeah.
Because if you're not called, because I tell people, and we have pastors that go start a church. I said, here's what's going to happen. Mike Tyson is going to hit you in the face. He's going to hit you in the stomach, and you're going to want to quit.
Mm-hmm.
Just know it.
Yeah.
So just know it. And you keep going. That'll be a test, and it'll happen every month.
Yeah.
There.
Every month.
It's some form of fashion.
What you have to look forward to. Wow.
So that, and then surround yourself with people who can encourage you, that you can be honest with, and that you can be honest with. When my mom was dying, Bishop Jakes, we had just started developing a relationship. And he said to me, anytime you want to call me to cry, talk, laugh, curse, whatever you want, just call me and I'll be there for you. About 5 times I called him. And within 5 minutes or so, he was on the phone for an hour.
Wow.
Giving me everything you see him preach for an hour on the TV, he was giving that to me. And he said, whatever you want to say, it's right, it stays right here.
Wow.
That's one of his callings, is to minister to people. And people don't know that about him. I like to brag about that about him, because
wow.
It's like he was on a plane once. I don't have an hour. I didn't have an hour.
Right.
It was my mom, but he was there, and he's like, he would have stayed on for 2 hours.
Wow.
And so you got to have people in your life, and that's he has a lot going on. He has 10 times more going on in his life than mine. But you got to have people in your life who will do that. Will be there for you, and you don't feel alone.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So Bishop Jakes is obviously, and he's from afar. Have you found, as you're a lead pastor of a big church, do you have guys like that are running the same race as you in other places that which is healthy to have, because they're going to give us advice without all the context, unbiased. But have you also found that there's a local community, whether it's elders or friends or people that you're able to have run with you and know you in a way here locally?
Yeah.
Do you have both that you kind of lean on?
Yeah. Different, whether it be pastors or family, or obviously my wife, but my sister is real close to me. She just recently moved, but she's here for 20 years. Yes. Other pastors at different levels of intimacy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Lean on people. Community is huge. Mm-hmm. Well, anything else you want to share about that before I ask you my last question of the?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It sounds like you lead from a place of transparency, and that's really a beautiful thing, and especially in this generation. So, I know, being a lead pastor, that there's 1,000 stories of pain and struggle and problems that you could tell us. But so my last question, conversations in contrast, is one is, what's something hard or some difficult things you've been through, and then the second is, I just want to end by talking about something awesome. So I know that you obviously are a humble person. You come up very humble, but is there something that maybe you wouldn't normally stand up on the pulpit and preach about because it would naturally sound like bragging? But is there something that you employ in your life, either with your relationship with God, or maybe some with your wife, or with your staff, or something that you just do? I don't know, something that if somebody found out, man, that's really healthy, that's really selfless, that's really just amazing. And could I ask you to hit the pause button on being humble for a minute, and just, because I'm asking you, you're not bringing this up, I'm asking, is there something that not so people will glorify you, but somebody say, man, maybe I should do that too? That would be healthy in my life.
Yeah. First, let me tell you, I'm not a humble person. I'm a people person, and I like people, but I'm a flawed individual.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that, though. What do I do? I don't know. I told you I was gonna know the answer by the time you asked me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would say,
What if I ask you like this? What's the healthiest aspect of your life?
the healthiest aspect of my life. Probably, well, and that might not be the answer you want. It's probably my food. My wife feeds me good. I think probably one thing, I love people, right? And when I'm traveling, airport, plane, I like to meet new people and be a blessing to them. Just they don't know who I am. Mom pushing a baby. How can I help the mom, or someone sitting next to me on the plane, the stewardess? And I like to make people smile, make people happy, or, laugh, or be encouraged. And so I like interacting with regular people about what they're going through. Because I feel like, listen, I feel like a lot of people have little problems that seem like mountains.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't seen mountains blown up in my life. So I feel like I got this big bazooka and they have these little fleas. To them, it's a big, gigantic thing.
Mm-hmm.
But to God, it's like, man, if they could just pray and ask God to do this, and God could change their life right now. And I love walking into those situations one-on-one, in the airport, in the plane, in the store. If I got 3 minutes, tell me, so tell me enough that I can be a blessing to you right now. And I think that I was at the airport the other day, and this African-American dude was standing out waiting. We were both waiting for something. And I just started talking to him, and he was telling me about his life, and he's got in a car accident, and he's running from God, and I say, hey, let me pray for you, man. Let me pray for you right now. And you talk to people, and they say, well, I don't believe in God. Yeah, I believe in God. I used to go to church, and they finally wiggle them way to where they ask Christ to be their savior a while back, or they want to.
Yeah.
And then it just helps them get to a point where they go, what? I think I need to start going to church again.
Yeah.
And then start praying again.
Yeah.
I like doing that. And so when I'm out, I'm looking for people to talk to.
That's awesome.
My wife is the opposite. She's looking for people to avoid because she's introvert.
I'm looking at my wife off camera.
Your wife's not an introvert. Your wife is, I don't care what she says. I walked in here, she was like, hey.
Well, okay, so let me tell you something about my wife, who's off camera over here. This is what I've decided. She's an extroverted introvert. When she's with people, she knows how to be extroverted, but to refill and recharge, she needs to not people for certain seasons.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
But you're talking about a
wife-
different, is like,
My wife's is not people all the
time. Okay. I can appreciate that. Well, you know what? That's a beautiful thing, because especially when we start getting busier and when people start, if I could say it like this, get bigger in ministry, you're running a big church. So the tendency sometimes is things get bigger, services, big conferences, big services, big gathering, big this, big that. And so I love that you still have the heart for the one. And it's not based on, oh, I'm Pastor Miles. It's just some person that doesn't know you. You're just a nobody to them, but you're still going to have the conversation. You're still going to pursue the prayer because it's just a heart of love for the person. That's awesome.
And I'll even take one step further. We all have, well, I say we all have, when someone says you love your kids the same, no, you don't. You may love them at a 10, but you express that love differently, right? Depending on. My favorite group are teenage athletes. So when I see kids in the airport or anywhere, I'm like, okay, I got to go talk to them. And I don't I got to get them right. I just want to talk to them. What's going on? Tell me what's going on, and tell me, what are you struggling with? And kids talk to me. People talk to me, But that is my favorite. So and they're not impressed by, especially not my pastor, but I, even though I do have a big church and all that stuff, I like kids and just talking to people.
That's cool.
About whatever. That's my
That's awesome.
I don't know if that's a secret, but
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. I wonder if I could ask you to do one last thing. Just say a prayer over anybody that's listening, and any direction that you feel led, maybe to do with pain that you've been through, that they might be going through. And then before we do that, is there, what would be the way for somebody to find you, whether like you personally online or your church, if they're in this region? How can they look that up?
they can go to @Miles McPherson, and that's my handle, and they can get all the information.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram, all the stuff.
Okay.
And also I wrote a book called The Third Option, Hope for a Racially Divided Nation. And, this nation is so divided.
Right.
And we, not only is it, the third option is that we honor what we have in common. So it starts with the fact that we're all more similar than different. And diversity is actually a variation of our similarity. So I would challenge people to go get that book, but they can follow me at Miles McPherson and the rocksandiego.org.
And you guys are all, I think you have five or
We
six?
have 5 campuses here in San Diego and 1 in Oahu.
1 and 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're anywhere in the San Diego region, what is it? The Rock?
The Rock San Diego. San Diego. SDRock.com.
SDRock.com. So find them there.
SDRock.com. Just on Miles McPherson.
If you're looking for a church.
Yeah, looking for a church. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, we're going to talk. I tell people, look, if you come in here to hear what you want to hear, that's probably not going to happen. But if you want to hear what we believe anyway, God's going to say, we go at it. But people love that. Let's talk about it. We just finished a series called Let's Talk. We Need to Talk. So we talked about all kinds of stuff going on in the world today.
This the real issues, huh?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, would you say a prayer?
Yeah. Lord, thank you so much for the fact that all things work together for good for those who are called to your purpose, and who love you and are called to according to your purpose. And thank you for how much you turn what the devil means for evil into good. And I pray that what was said today would encourage people. I pray that people will think they're being crushed and that the weight of that burden is too much. I pray that they would understand that there's no weight too big for you, that they cast that burden on you or you care for them, and that your burden is light. And so I pray that they let it go. I pray they open their hand and let you take that burden out of their hands, and that they would remember that you have called them to something very specific, and that you would encourage them and give them clarity about why you have called them, what you have called them to, and let them see past the pain and let them see the lesson in the pain. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Miles, and God bless you all.